Hey, hey, hey. Happy Leap Day. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. And the first thing I do notice, we don't have the correct dates up here. So give me a moment, and that will be taken care of. Ta-da! Give that a second. And voila! Very nice, very nice. Gotta say, today has been a crazy day. In fact, for most of the day, I have not had electricity. Yes, there was a power outage for most of the morning throughout just about all of the afternoon. In fact, the electricity didn't come back on until, about 4:30 my time, thereabouts. So, got to point out, there is no news tonight. No news at all on tonight's show. I know, crazy, isn't it? Anyway, tonight is Thursday, February 29th. Don't get to say February 29th too often, once every 4 years, actually. So it is Leap Day 2024. This is live stream number 1027. So welcome aboard, everybody. It is going to be an oddball sort of show. So it is mainly going to be chat focused. I know. Bizarre. What can I tell you? By the time the power came back up, I really didn't have time to take care of everything that needed to get done today. So I had to start making dinner right away, and that was about it. So luckily, I was able to get the little date image done. And then, of course, came down here and forgot to add it into the OBS studio. Yes, what can I tell you? It happens. It's one of those things. See, today's just going to be an oddball leap year day episode. Nice. Of course, next week we'll be back to our regularly scheduled fiascos. Just not tonight. So anyway, do want to point out that this is a live stream. So if you are watching live, you can certainly take part in chat. Chat is available if you are a subscriber to the channel and if you have been a subscriber for at least 48 hours. So if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, maybe there's a topic you'd like to discuss, chime in and I will do my best to respond. Of course, do want to mention when you're out watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com. For all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. So let's see, who do we have in chat? First out the gate tonight is a friend of the show, the Madman, who also happens to be one of our chat moderators, wishing everybody a happy Friday Eve. Deja Vu is with us, as is James Eck. Galerin, or I should say Gorlin. What did I say, Galerin? I don't know. I'm discombobulated. What can I tell you? I'm not used to just kind of rolling out a show and just talking. I usually have, some content to share with you. Anyway, Gerlin is with us, as is Lord Cost 2000. Flaming Huron, another of our chat moderators, is with us, as is W Forge. And I'm going to take a guess. Maybe Miss Sarah D, another of our chat moderators, is hanging with us tonight. Might be lurking in the shadows. Yes. Martin 7W and Beat Cafe are hanging with the gang. It's been a while since we've seen Beat Cafe. Good to see you. Thanks for popping on in. So, what shall we chat about tonight? I should mention my best friend, Elliot Miller, is supposed to be popping on into chat again tonight. I don't know who we're supposed to thank. We're going to have back-to-back evenings with the voice of E joining us. Flaming Heron says it is GM Day sale. The Schalt PDF is being given away completely free over on Drive-Thru RPG. And there is also a Dune RPG bundle over on Humble Bundle. Nice. Now, you would have gotten that Dune news piece tonight. Yes, that was something I had planned on sharing, as well as the Kickstarter for Luke Gygax's Gax Works adventure. It's Tomb of the, what is it, Gaian Gax, if I remember correctly. Another big news item today, which the reality is there's no information about it. But Modifius Entertainment has announced that they are going to release a role-playing game based on Terry Pratchett, or I guess I should say Sir Terry Pratchett's Discworld. Very interesting, very interesting. All that's really out about it, though, is the announcement and that it's going to come to Kickstarter in late 2024. So the reality is I would not have shared a news piece about that because all I could show you is a logo and tell you, oh, Modifius Entertainment's going to do a role-playing game based on Discworld, and that'd have been it. That would have been the extent of what I'd be able to share. Not really much. Not really much. Sarah D is hanging out with us. Says, having one of those days here too. Had to go rescue her sister and her kids 3 times in an hour. Followed her home and watched her go inside after that. 3 times in a single hour. Holy cow. W Forge also points out Cobalt Con has set dates for their convention, which is, as far as I understand, a brand new convention, which is hosted by Cobalt Press. And if memory serves me correctly, Cobalt Press is in Washington State. So is Wizards of the Coast. So is Paizo Inc. I think there's one other role-playing game company that's right there in the same area. They're all in the Seattle area. So Wizards of the Coast is in Redmond. I believe Paizo Inc. is also Redmond. I know this because I've got a friend who lives in Redmond and used to go, well, I don't think he lives in Redmond anymore. I think he moved to another suburb or town around Seattle. I know most cities don't like having their towns or whatever called suburbs. Here in the Chicago area, well, we don't really care. It's like, yeah, it's a suburb of Chicago. Out west, I noticed like when I lived in Mesa or Gilbert or Chandler out in Arizona, you did not refer to them as suburbs of Phoenix. People would get very, very upset. So Deja Vu says lots of tabletop role-playing game companies are based out of Washington. Yeah, it's pretty unusual how, and they all kind of are all right in that Seattle area. I don't know of any in like Spokane or Spokane, however you want to pronounce it. I would always call it Spokane, but then I had people there tell me, no, it's Spokane. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, you live here. W. Forge says they're pretty sure that CobaltCon is going to be an online convention. Interesting. The Madman does point out that they were playing games last night. We figured that's what was going on, seeing that it was a Wednesday. So we took that into account. We missed you, but we figured you were probably running some Savage Worlds for your group. Or maybe Wednesday is a D&D night. I think it's Savage Worlds, if I remember correctly. So howdy, everybody. Should mention I had an opportunity to watch the first episode of Shogun last night. I will watch the second episode tonight. Pretty impressive so far. Pretty impressive. Pretty much staying with the novel. I remember reading the novel as a kid. Yes. I read Shogun, I think it was about 1979. And I was still in grammar school. So I've mentioned that before, that I was sitting there reading Salem's Lot and Ghost Story and big, 100, like I was going to say hundreds, 5, 6, 7, 800-page novels. The Stand, I read The Stand when that came out. And of course, everybody else in my class was doing book reports on Tom Swift and Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. Pretty wild. I just love to read. Fortunately, I don't get the same amount of time as I once did for reading for pleasure, but that's why I utilize audiobooks. I know it's not the same thing. I know. But it's better than nothing. Better than nothing. Deja Vu says they tried riffs a few days ago. Fun setting. Maybe it was just a GM, but it was off the wall funny. Really, I didn't think riffs was supposed to be funny. And Garland says they read the novel when they were about 10 or 11, and the miniseries from long ago is burned into their memories. Yes, I remember watching that. That's why I read the book, is I remember watching the miniseries on, I thought it was NBC. Somebody said it was ABC. I don't recall. I remember Richard Chamberlain in it, but for some strange reason, I thought it was NBC. I might be wrong. Probably am. But that was back in the day when there were all of these really big, high budget miniseries that would get made from ABC, NBC, CBS, not as much. I seem to recall ABC was sort of the really big miniseries network with things like War and Remembrance and The Winds of War. I think I got those in reverse order there. I think it was Winds of War first and then War and Remembrance second. And of course, Roots, Holocaust, all of those just big name stars who were never in TV shows would be in them. It was like, holy cow, like Robert Mitchum. I think it was the first time Robert Mitchum was, in a television show. So that was pretty wild. W4 said they read Battlefield Earth just because it was a 1,000-page science fiction paperback. I read that too. So did my best friend Elliot Miller. In fact, this was when we were in high school, and he and I and a few of our friends would all be reading the same book at the same time. We weren't necessarily having a book club, but we just tended to pick up the same books. And it was sort of funny because we would sit there and ask, hey, how far have you gotten? And then somebody would tell you, and if it was like, oh, okay, I haven't gotten to that point yet, I guess we won't be discussing anything. But a lot of times it'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, so I've gotten past that. So what do you think of stuff like that? Steven from Roll for Combat is with us asking if the channel is going to implode on February 29th. Well, close to it. There's no news tonight because our power has been out for most of the day here. So I had no time to prep. So we are just kind of hanging out, doing I guess we'll say an off-the-cuff, chat-focused episode of the show tonight. Chris Lundgren says, sorry, they were late. They were working on an update for their Osric campaign. Very nice. Anthony Good is with us in chat as well. Chaz Asnable is hanging out. I shouldn't say Chaz, it's Char. Char says, I'm not really a big fan of novels with huge page counts. I love the old school pulp sci-fi and fantasy books. I don't get scared off by huge page counts. In fact, I think the longest book I've read is I know they weren't calling it a director's cut, but it was the director's cut of The Stand, which I seem to recall ran about 1,800 pages, thereabouts, because it was a lot of the stuff that Stephen King's editor had said, yeah, just trim that, get rid of that, all put back into the book. So, and I got to be honest, I'm like many people, my favorite Stephen King book is The Stand. Absolutely love it. I think both miniseries have been pretty good, although, in my opinion, I think the Molly Ringwald, Gary Sinise miniseries with Rob Lowe, I think it's superior to the one that they came out with just a few years ago, except for the ending. I think the ending of the newer miniseries pulled off the end of the book really nicely. And in the ABC miniseries, it was sort of like, what the hell just happened? What's going on? Trash man. Trash can man. Hey, trash. Very nice. Gerlin says, Battlefield Earth was an interesting concept, but I remember it being a bit of a slog to read. It just kept going on and on and on. I think I recall was the major issue I had with it. And the reality is it wasn't that good a book. But a bunch of us had picked it up all at the same time who were checking that out. Chris Lundgren says they read Noble House when they were a teenager. And it took an entire summer to read, but they really enjoyed it. Chris Lundgren points out that they enjoyed Glames. My grasp of the English language is just as good as ever now. Anywho, Chris Lundgren was saying that he enjoyed James Clavell's Taipan and Noble House. I think I read Taipan. I didn't read Noble House, but I did read Taipan way back in the day. Chaz asks, why do I keep saying Chaz? It's the Asnable. That's what throws me off. Char asks, was I ever able to get into GaryCon with a press pass? No. I am not going to GaryCon. I am going to Founders and Legends Week, which is right before GaryCon, in the same hotel and everything. No, not going to GaryCon. Number one is because Elliot's going with, and he wasn't going to be able to pull off the days he needed to be able to go to GaryCon. Whereas we can easily pull off Founders and Legends. It's really only 3 days. In fact, we were just talking about that today. What we were planning as far as those 3 days, because it starts on a Saturday, strangely enough, and it runs Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So we are going up there on Friday. We think we can pick up our passes early because one aspect of GaryCon that was a bit of a drag was picking up the passes because it took a long time. So there were only like a couple of spots for you to pick up passes, and there were quite a few people picking up passes. So this is a smaller convention. I think there's 600 badges for it. I don't think it's sold out yet either. But we should be able to move through it at a quicker pace. I have to double check to see if we can pick the passes up on Friday. Otherwise, if not, we're just going to go out to eat and have a few beers and kick back, probably play some games in the hotel and things like that. W. Forge says, yeah, I like the first miniseries of The Stand, but every time I hear Tom Cullen these days, I keep hearing Patrick Starfish. Jeez. Char says, dang. Well, that event sounds great. I wish I could have gone to both. Chris Lundgren says, I really want to go to Vegas someday for the big Creation Star Trek convention. It's a dream they have. I have actually never been to a Star Trek convention. I haven't been to any like Star Wars celebration either. But I think that would be pretty interesting. I think it'd be pretty cool to go to a Star Trek convention. I think Elliot has. I think Elliot went to one, but not a, big major convention like in Vegas or something like that. I think it was local. So that may have been it as well. So let's talk a little bit about the Gaming Gang version of March Madness, which officially kicks off tomorrow. But what I'm going to do is after I'm done with the show tonight, I am going to go into YouTube on our community page, and I am going to post the 2 links for you to vote. So you'll be able to vote early. Now, you will not be able to vote often because the way that this website works is it will track your IP address. So you only get one vote, I should say one ballot for each of the divisions per IP address. So it prevents the ballot box stuffing that could take place. And it also means that each of your votes is far more important because if people could just show up and vote as many times as they wanted, if someone really wanted me to run, Boot Hill, they could game the system to be able to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the 2 links and you'll be able to start voting tonight. And if you need a recap of what's going on, I am actually having a bit of a March Madness where I am taking 64 tabletop role-playing games and having them compete. And it's going to be a field of 64. So the first round is going to pare that down to 32 games. Round after that, 16, 8, 4, 2. And then, of course, we'll have the finals between the top 2 role-playing games. Kind of cool. And I got to be honest, there are loads and loads of different role-playing games that are taking part. Some of them you might be sitting there like, what? Really? Seriously? And then you might be surprised by some that aren't in there. But what's eventually going to happen is the winner is going to be the role-playing game that I am going to run a campaign of starting in April. Now, I am going to try to do an in-person game, but if I can't pull that off, I will be doing a role-playing campaign through basically a virtual tabletop, which means that some of you may have an opportunity to get into that game. So keep that in mind as well. I know I already had somebody comment that they couldn't believe, because I shared a kind of a sneak peek at some of the entries in the 2 divisions. And the divisions are the Arneson division and the Gygax division. And the winners of each are going to go head-to-head for the championship to see which RPG emerges victoriously. But somebody commented that one of the brackets was Boot Hill, 3rd edition, versus the Black Hack, 2nd edition. They're like, what? And I had to explain, I didn't seed these. I was going to sit there and not only have to put everything together, and then on top of that, seed these? No. It's all random. So the matchups are all absolutely random. Now, there are some that are like in the same genre or similar role-playing games going up against each other. That was just the luck of the draw. I had nothing to do with that. So stay tuned. You'll be able to start voting later on tonight. I'm also going to share these links on my social media accounts starting tomorrow. So if you follow me on Blue Sky, X, Facebook, I will be sharing those links for you to vote. I'm looking forward to it. And the thing is, I have no control over any of it. So the way it's set up, once the voting starts, the reality is the voting has started. Just nobody's voted yet. I haven't shared the links. But you'll see that the voting will run to a certain point for the first round. After that, the winners will be revealed, and you'll be able to come back and vote again. And of course, I'll be mentioning this on the show. I'll also be pointing this out on social media and on the community page here. So you'll have every opportunity to take part. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And I am curious to see what role-playing game will emerge. Now, I have to point out, I have copies of these games. So I either have them in PDF or I actually have physical copies of them. So, and that was very important. Otherwise, how am I going to run the game? I don't have the rules or anything. So I'm pumped. I'm pretty excited for this. Geraldine says there used to be a regular icon attendee back when the con still existed. I'm not familiar with that convention. Not at all. So Shar says that GaryCon is going to be their first tabletop role-playing gaming convention. Very cool. Very cool. It's, okay, so for me, it's really quiet. So, because you got to keep in mind, we go to San Diego Comic-Con, which has 180,000 attendees. And then, of course, we go to Gen Con, which pulls in between 60 and 80,000. And then, of course, GaryCon is about 1,500. I think they capped the number of badges at 1,500 or 1,600 this year. So to me, it's kind of a quiet convention. But to folks who've never gone to a tabletop gaming convention before, it's probably pretty hectic. Pretty hectic. Chris Lundgren says, they hear Owlbear is nice to use. Never tried a game of it. I'm not familiar with Owlbear. So, as an example, there's no 5e D&D because we know why. There is no GURPS. There is no Palladium games of any type, so no Rifts, nothing like that. See, any other major role-playing game that's not, well, there's nothing from Renegade Game Studios, but outside of maybe Kids on Bikes, really isn't any role-playing game that I would be looking to run. I don't care for 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade. I've got no interest in like G.I. Joe or Transformers or My Little Pony. So those are not in the running, but I think I've got most of the genres covered. Got to say, there is only one superhero role-playing game, and that is Champions, as it's the only superhero role-playing game that I have a copy of in PDF. So, Chris asks, for the players in my game, will they have access to the rules for them to learn the game before they play? Yeah. Yeah, sure. I don't see any problem with that. Once again, that's if I were using a virtual tabletop, and if people who follow the Gaming Gang were going to have an opportunity to take part. I don't know if that's going to be the case. And if I do use a virtual tabletop, it's going to be pretty light because I just don't happen to have the time to invest into all the bells and whistles. So it would be far more theater of the mind as opposed to having tokens for everything and maps for everything. And depending on the role-playing game that wins, may not really be aimed at that kind of virtual tabletop either. Flaming Heron says, no, My Little Pony. I know, Flaming Heron's tuning out now. Like, I'm not even going to bother voting. Fuck that. All right. So this crazy leap day edition of the Gaming Gang Dispatch will continue in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Everybody loves pizza, the worldwide taste treat. And no one makes more delicious pizza than you'll get at our snack bar. Pizza, please. It's freshly baked to your order, served crisp and piping hot, skillfully prepared with a delicious combination of mozzarella, provolone, and Romano cheeses. In our full individual size, with our deluxe sauce that's lip-smacking good. Yes, everybody loves pizza. Join the crowd headed for the snack bar, where everybody orders that delicious, wholesome, taste-tempting pizza.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Man-sized pleasure. Yours in premium quality Falstaff beer. Taste to satisfy your man-sized thirst, light enough to leave room for more. Falstaff's always brewed with extra care for the finest beer possible, even to cascading every brew over the Falstaff chilling tower, instantly icing it down to protect Falstaff's premium quality taste every step of the way, until you're ready to enjoy it. For man-sized pleasure, this is the one. Falstaff. Unmistakably America's premium quality beer. Ah.
The Indians won't bother you. All you got's a shipment of Wilkins coffee. Someday he's gonna learn that everybody drinks Wilkins.
Here they come. Mattel's new Baroom bikes. They look and sound just like a motorcycle. With storage compartment, motorcycle handlebars, and Mattel's fantastic Baroom motor that works with a real key. Mattel's Baroom bikes. See them, hear them, get them wherever bikes are sold. You can tell they're Mattel. They're swell.
And now, on with the show.
While that pizza may not have looked all that appetizing, as Chris points out, not looking so yummy, I will actually take a guess that it's probably far tastier, or it was, I should say, far tastier than most of the frozen pizza that's out there today. I will say that much for sure. Well, I have to say that my favorite frozen pizza, I don't know if it's available in too many other places here in the U.S. I think it might be relatively local. It's called Latza Matza, and it's a pub pizza. And it really does taste like a pub pizza. So, excuse me. If you're not familiar with pub pizza, it's kind of what it sounds like. It's pizza that you would have hanging out at a bar. So a lot of bars will have these different distributors that come in and sell them food if they can legally serve food. And the pizzas are really good for the most part. I've had some horrible bar pizza, but for the most part, as long as they're not making like tombstone pizzas, it's pretty good. And the lots of matzo, I most certainly recommend, should be available in the Midwest. So as an example, if Miss Sarah D enjoys pizza and has not tried a lots of matzo, give it a shot. It's, like I said, it's probably my favorite frozen pizza. And what I do is I actually just cut up some green pepper. I just pick up the cheese. I don't get sausage or pepperoni. And then I dice up a green pepper and put that on top. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. Flaming Heron says probably on par with most frozen pizza these days. Game Cat asks if the March Madness for the Gaming Gang is a success. Could I see it becoming an annual Gaming Gang event? Maybe. That is a possibility. I could see doing that. So we will find out. Chris says, Jeff, at a Cubs game, hot dog, mustard only. Never put ketchup on my dogs. I wouldn't say only mustard at a ball game or actually anywhere that I have hot dogs. If I'm at a ball game, I'm doing at least onions and mustard. Pretty much it. I don't put relish on hot dogs. I don't really put relish on anything simply because I don't like the sweet. To me, it just tastes weird to have a hot dog, have onions, mustard, okay, and then suddenly you're throwing something sweet on there. No, not a fan. But if I'm making hot dogs at home, I make what most people consider to be Chicago-style hot dogs. So I take the hot dog, got the bun, I've got onion, I've got slices of tomato. I have tomato wedges, to be specific. I have pieces of cucumber, green pepper, and celery salt. And funny thing is, when I lived out in Arizona, my friends and I, we'd get together for like the Super Bowl or, final game, the World Series, what have you. And I would make Chicago-style hot dogs, and everybody was blown away. They're like, oh my God, because they'd be like, serious? All this stuff on a hot dog? Hey, where's the ketchup? There's no ketchup. Well, after they ate them, they were like, oh my gosh, these are awesome. What's on this? And I think part of it is the celery salt. I think the celery salt and the cucumber and the green pepper, really nice mixture, really nice texture as well. James X says, dill relish is way better. W. Forge says, KFC just debuted Cheesa, half chicken, half pizza in New York City. I saw that. I think it was on the news. Or maybe, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. I think it was Jimmy Kimmel was talking about it. I was like, oh my God. Sarah D says she's had pub pizzas. She and her mom used to work at a bar together. They had those. Yeah, and they're not like they're frozen pizzas, yes, but they don't come from like a store. They're made fresh, and then the distributor sells them to the bar. Just like in the Chicago area, I don't know if where people live who are watching this have ever experienced this, but we would have what they would always call the sausage man come to the neighborhood bars. And it's always just some guy coming around taking orders for various different sausage. And sometimes they're actually selling it right there. And other times they're taking orders and they're coming back in a couple of days to fulfill those orders. And I got to say, some damn good sausage, pepperonis and salamis and things like that. Really, really tasty stuff. Not cheap. We're certainly talking about it being way more expensive than going to your local grocery store and buying the stuff. But really well made and very, very tasty. Something else I wanted to point out as I had mentioned, there is going to be a March game sale. I was hoping to maybe kick it off tomorrow. That is not going to be the case, especially because of the goings on today. Didn't really get anything done. So I am hoping to kick it off on Sunday or Monday. And it's going to run through the month. And you'll want to keep in mind, it is first come, first served. So if you want dibs on something, got to get me an email. Tell me what you're looking for. And then tell me where you want them shipped. And then I can give you a total. And like I said, first come, first served. So if somebody wants something and they pay for it first, that's how it goes. It's not an auction or anything like that. So keep that in mind. I know there are quite a few of you out there who are watching who have taken part in game sales that I've done in the past, and they will attest that these are in pristine shape. These are not all beaten up. If there's any sort of dings or dents, I let you know. Now, I should point out some of the role-playing game books, and I will point this out on each specific book if it happens to have a little ding or a dent. A lot of times, review copies that come to me have a little bit of a ding, because that way the publisher can use that book, at least get some marketing from it by sending it out for review, whereas they would probably have to write it off or destroy it because of a little bit of damage. So as an example here, now, this is not something that is in the sale because this just arrived from Steven over at Roll for Combat. And we talked about these two books yesterday, but this has a little ding in the corner. Can't even see it on camera, but it's got a little bit of a ding. So obviously enough, Roll for Combat doesn't want to sell it to a paying customer, so they send it out as a review copy. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the book. Absolutely nothing wrong with the book. And the book is still going to hold up to the same repeated use at the game table as any other book would, or any other copy of that book would. It's just got a little bit of a ding. Roll for Combat. Steven's like, there's a ding. Yeah, in both of them. In the bottom corner. And it almost reminds me of what we see with Amazon books. Same thing with Jewel of the Indigo Isles. This one has a ding here too, like it's been crushed, like the corner's been crushed up. Like I said, it's not a big deal. When I do reviews in that, I usually don't even mention it because it's kind of a given. And like I said, I certainly understand those being sent to me as opposed to going out to a paying customer. But then again, sometimes things get dinged up in shipping too. So that happens as well. But anything that's got a little ding or a dent, I let you know. So it's not going to be suddenly something shows up and you're like, what the hell? Did Jeff drop kick this before he threw it in the box? What the hell's going on here? No, not at all. All right, Matthew Constantine was with us. I didn't even see Matthew pop on in, and they're out. So good to see you, Matthew. Thanks for swinging on by. Gerlin says, not like you won't pick up dings and worse through use and play. Of course, sure. That is the case. That happens all the time. I do take care of my books, though. I take care of my games. I do not let people sit there and snack, and just, get grease and shit all over my games or game books. As the voice of E will attest, because he has joined us in chat. Yes, that is my best friend, Elliot Miller, popping on in. Good to see you, Elliot. So Elliot's popping in as I'm almost ready to wrap this up. Are there any topics of conversation anybody would like to get into before I wrap tonight's show up? I have talked about the March Madness. And then, of course, I've also mentioned that the Gaming Gang game sale will kick off on Sunday or Monday. As I said, it'll run through the month of March. Now, of course, there is going to be a period when Elliot and I are at Founders and Legends, so I won't be able to ship anything out then because I won't be home. But for the most part, turnaround's pretty quick. Turnaround is pretty quick. Steven says, best hot dog in Chicago. Okay. Who's got the best hot dog in Chicago? I know a lot of people dig the Wiener Circle. I think that is more the case of just people insult you there. So it's kind of one of these places that you go in and they give you a hard time. It's part of the shtick. I have had their hot dogs. They were all right. I think they were okay. They weren't terrible. Gotta say, I think the best Chicago hot dogs are the ones I make. Really. Because here's the reason. So what I do is I actually do the same thing that my favorite hot dog place ever did. And now, we all know Elliot doesn't have the greatest memory about things, but he might remember this. Elliot says, Demon Dogs over by DePaul. I have been there. Another place that I thought the dogs were okay. They were decent. You know, it's just funny. Maybe I'm picky. But even when I lived in Arizona and I would run into people who were like, oh, you know, I'm from Chicago too, and you got to go to XYZ place because they've got the best Italian beef. Or, oh, go to this place because they have excellent gyros. And I would go and I'd be very disappointed. The only place anyone ever recommended that I go to that I thought could hold a candle to food I grew up with in Chicago was Rosati's Pizza. And only some of the Rosati's pizzas in Arizona belonged to a specific family member who went out there to retire and then realized that the pizza out in Arizona was awful. And then they franchised some out. So they sold the name to franchisees, and their pizza was nothing like the Rosati's that belonged to the family. But I have to say, that pizza was really good pizza. It was excellent pizza. My favorite pizza in Arizona. And I like Rosati's Pizza here in the Chicago area as well. Anyway, I was going to say, Elliot might remember this. So there was a place, all it was a stand. So it was like, oh, I don't know what you would consider it. Now, I'm not talking a stand where it's like, you know, a push cart like you would see in New York. I'm saying that it was just a stand where you would walk up, you would order, and you'd get it at the window. So there was no place for you to go inside and eat. You just went and you ordered. And the place, all they had were hot dogs, chips, and cans of soda. And it was, for most of you who are not in the Chicago area or familiar with the Chicago area, this is going to mean nothing to you, but this is where I'm trying to see if it'll jog Elliot's memory. It was over on Montrose Avenue. And it was actually right next to a gas station, or a service station, I should say, that was closed. In fact, I never saw that service station open. And it looked more like one of those old gas stations where they did repairs, as opposed to like a gas station now. But I never saw it open. And they had just phenomenal hot dogs. So they would have fresh steamed buns. They steamed the dogs. They didn't boil the dogs. And they used Oscar Mayer hot dogs. And once again, you had the green pepper, you had the cucumber, you had the onion, you had the celery salt, and you had the mustard. And they were just fantastic hot dogs. And the thing is, this stand was only open during the summer. Wasn't open during the winter, wasn't open during the fall. It would open like late spring, and it would just be open through the summer. And my mom and dad used to take my brother and I over there for a special, a treat, like on a Friday night during the summer. He'd be like, yeah, come on, let's go get a hot dog. Come on, jump in the car. Because it was about a 10-minute drive for us. So I'm wondering if Elliot remembers this. I'm curious. Elliot says XYZ is awesome for dogs. I'm not familiar with that. Lord Cost 2000 says fun in a bun. I don't think I've gone to fun in the bun, or fun in a bun, I should say. Chris asks, when I travel to gaming conventions via plane and want to bring games, how do I do that? Ship ahead, take on the plane, what? What suggestions? I have never flown. Well, okay, I take that back. I flew once to Origins. One time. And I seem to recall I ended up sending a box back, but I checked it. But as far as game conventions, I don't fly. We usually drive. So anything we want to bring goes into the trunk. So Elliot says, like Montrose and Pulaski, yes, very close. It was between Pulaski and Cicero. In fact, it was just past, I'm trying to think, there's a street that cuts in like at an angle right in that area. It might be Milwaukee if I think on it, but maybe not. I don't think it's Elston. But yes, that was it. It was Montrose, and it would have been, that would have been west of Pulaski. Just like there was a pizza place. I think Elliot went with us to it a couple of times. That was over near the house where I grew up. And it was called Marie's. And it was one of these places where it was a pizza place. And it also had a small bar. And it was connected to a liquor store. So you could pretty much take care of all your business right there over at Marie's. And last I heard, it is still around, which is pretty surprising because most of the places I grew up with are long, long gone. So Elliot asks if I remember the place called Mr. Steer. Of course, Milwaukee Avenue. Yep, Milwaukee Avenue over by Six Corners. We used to go over there and have steaks. And they weren't necessarily great steaks, but they were pretty modestly priced. And I think that was the big selling point for Mr. Steer over on Milwaukee Avenue. That's pretty wild. I haven't thought of that place in a long, long time. Interestingly enough, there is a costumes shop, which is actually really large on Milwaukee Avenue. It's right down the street. Chris says they've got a Portillo's in Orange County. It's pretty good, but it is popular in Chicago as they say. And what's your thoughts? So here's the thing. When we talk about food in Chicago, we have to kind of discuss, are we talking the city? Are we talking the suburbs? Because in the city itself, you have so many mom and pop places that have excellent food, and they may not be a franchise. So Portillo's, like out in the Chicago suburbs, pretty popular because you don't have a lot of places that serve Italian beef and Italian sausage, or as some people like to say, Italian sausage, Italian. But as far as living in the city, I would think from my experience, now, got to remember, it's been a long time since I lived in the city, but I did spend 30 years living in Chicago. I could easily think of a handful of places that I don't know if they're still around anymore, but they certainly had far, far better Italian beef than Portillo's. Now, Portillo's opened in Arizona when I lived out there, and that was a big deal. That was a huge deal. It opened right before I left, and there were lines out the door for months after it opened up. So Voice of East says, yes, they were there last year to the costume place. It's called Fantasy Costumes, and it's even bigger now. Yes, it takes up like the whole block, which I thought was pretty amazing because it's a costume shop. But I think they also sell magic. Not Magic the Gathering. I mean like magic tricks and stuff like that. So, all right. Field one last question before I wrap up. Chris Lundgren points out that their relatives live in Naperville, not too far from us, really not far from where my brother and my sister-in-law and their kids live, because they're in the suburb next door in Aurora. Let's see. Let's see. Anything else? So Chris was also asking about, I guess I can pick back up on this. Chris was asking about shipping games to a convention. If you were going to do something like that, if you were going to ship ahead, you would probably be shipping to the hotel you're staying at. And the reality is, in my opinion, if you're going to do something like that, and it's a game that's readily available, it'd probably just be cheaper for you to buy the game at the game convention. So, Chris Lundgren asks, what game store do I recommend in Chicago? Once again, I don't live in Chicago. I live about an hour outside of Chicago. There are some game shops that I have popped into, but the thing is, I don't even know if they're still around. Now, out by me, there are a couple of game stores. One of them is, I want to say it's the Dragon's something. It's not the Dragon's Horde. It's got a different name. And it's actually very nice. And they have rooms to game in that are private rooms that you rent out. I think it's, if I remember right, it's $5 a person. And I've mentioned this place in the past. The only reason why I wouldn't game there is because they don't allow you to bring in any sort of outside food or drink. And I need some diet soda if I'm going to be running games or playing games. And I'm not paying $2.50 per can of like Diet Coke. But there is also another game store, which is in Oswego, Illinois. And it, off the top of my head, I can't think of the name of it, but it doesn't have a flashy name or anything along those lines. But they're a pretty decent store. They don't carry a lot of role-playing game stuff outside of Dungeons and Dragons. So they don't even carry like Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They don't carry Call of Cthulhu. But they have a decent enough board game section in there. And then they also have an area upstairs for open gaming. So you don't have private rooms. They're just tables, but they don't charge anything to play there. So that would be the location I would probably look at as far as if I were running a face-to-face role-playing campaign with people I didn't know. So we've talked about that before. I would probably do it there. And it's kind of, I think it's a first come, first serve as far as those tables go. But I have been into the shop a few times. I've never seen anybody up there gaming. But then again, I've popped in the afternoon, not in the evening. So, but as far as game store in Chicago, really can't help out. Really can't. So Chris says Shuffle and Cut in Orange County is nice. It's got a lot of independent role-playing games and a large game room. My go-to game store in Chicago used to be the Emperor's headquarters, but it was far more focused on historical miniatures and war games. They did have regular board games, and they also had, role-playing games, things like that. That's long gone. That was over on Irving Park. I know Elliot remembers that place. We went there constantly. Well, I went there constantly. I know Elliot was with me quite a few times as well. All right. So Chris says, sorry, Bird stepped on the keyboard. Oh, no, I understood you meant large game room. All righty. So that is going to be it for this time out. Yes, a very weird episode tonight because of the power outage. But I did want to do a show. I didn't want to just not show up and do a show and have people wondering, oh, what's going on? So once again, remember, in the next few minutes, probably within the next 15 to 20 minutes, be sure to stop on over at the community page for the Gaming Gang channel here on YouTube. I will have the links for both the Arneson division and the Gygax division so that you can vote on the Gaming Gang March Madness. 64 tabletop role-playing games will enter. Only one will emerge victorious, and that will be the game I will be running in April. And of course, the Gaming Gang March game sale will kick off on Sunday or Monday. Be sure to stop on by gaminggang.com. I will list all the games there. So that's how you stay in the loop of what's available. And as games get sold, I do mark them off. So very rarely will you run across something that you see that's showing that it's available in one of my sales and it's no longer available. Every once in a while, I have like 2 or 3 people within 10 minutes email me about something. But usually I stay on top of it. All right. So that's it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. Because not only will it inform you when I share episodes of the Gaming Gang Dispatch Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming first look at Achtung Cthulhu 2D20, the starter set from Modifius Entertainment. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Have a fantastic weekend. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you were watching live and took part in chat, a far bigger thank you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company. But of course, I know a lot of people out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.